Steven, do you see already the presentation?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now we'll have recruiting and interviewing. Part of the recruitment and selection is the interview. It's one of the major activity of recruitment and selection because how will you select the best among the rest without looking at the KSAO? Remember, in job analysis, we have knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics. And one method is interviewing. Let us start with recruitment. So, what is it? It is the process of attracting people with the right qualifications to apply for the job. As I mentioned, recruitment is the activity that one personnel in human resource do when he or she tries to collect pool of applicants who are possible qualified for a certain position or a job in the company. So we start getting the information about the person, we start getting the things or the characteristics, their qualifications, whether they are really qualified in a particular job or task. Actually, ang recruitment, nagsa-start siya pa nga with postings or in any methods that later we will discuss na magagawin ng isang HR personnel or staff para makakuha ng tamang empleyado. There are two basic types of recruitment, internal and external. When we talk about internal recruitment, you hire or promote someone from within the organization. So when you have internal recruitment, let's say for example, na bakante yung isang posisyon, nag-retire or nag-resign doon sa certain position like halimbawa executive assistant, nag-retire yung dating may hawak ng posisyon na yon. So, there are chances that others who are part of the organization can be recruited or promoted to the next level or to that position, which is being an executive assistant. So in this manner, the advantage of this is that it enhances the motivation and morale of the employees kasi may chance palang ma-promote, may chance palang mag-level up doon sa position. And it runs the risk of having a stale workforce that is devoid of the many ideas that new employees bring with them from their previous employment. So naiiwasan din yung mga issues and concerns kasi wala ka nang dapat i-train, wala ka na dapat i-exposed with the culture, with the working environment, kasi galing naman siya sa loob ng company. Kumbaga, pinromote mo lang siya, ni-level up mo lang siya. So, it can be internal recruitment. Pwede rin namang external recruitment, which is to hire someone from outside the organization. Let's say, for example, there is a new job. After the job analysis, na-realize nung subject matter experts na kailangan pala ng additional psychometrician sa isang company. So, mag-hire, may vacancy. So, of course, it's an additional employee needed. So, you have to post, you have to recruit outside the organization. Or, kung pwede rin naman na internal recruitment, edi yung mga nakapasa na sa board na hindi naman psychometrician, yung kanyang yung kanyang rank or kanyang task ay pwede mo siyang i-recruit. But for external, you get or you hire someone from outside the organizations. There are various methods of recruitments which will be discussed today. We have the media ads, employment agencies, referrals, job fairs, situation wanted ads, executive search firms, direct mails, point of purchase, public agencies, and internet. Actually, there are a lot. There are a lot of ways on how we can gather applicants. Actually, kung titignan natin, madaling magkalap ng mga possible na empleyado sa kumpanya. Ang mahirap ay kung paano sasalain, kung paano i-filter kung sino ba talaga sa kanila ang tama para doon sa position na yon. Media advertisement, such as the newspaper ads, is considered as the least effective recruitment method. Sino sa inyo ang nagbabasa pa ng newspaper? Taas nga yung kamay. It's one method na pwede namang gamitin kung nagbabasa ng newspaper, di ba may mga classified ads. It's considered as the least effective recruitment method kasi una, hindi mo alam if who's that person really who will apply. Of course, they will submit resume and all, pero you don't have the idea of where the person reads the advertisement or siya ba talaga. Another thing is, bakit ito yung least effective? Hindi lahat ay nagbabasa ng newspaper. Baka yung chosen one na hinahanap mo in that particular job ay hindi nagbabasa ng newspaper. Kaya pala hindi mo makita, hindi ka makahanap ng talagang taong fit for the job ay dahil hindi siya accessive, hindi siya nag-access ng newspaper or whatsoever. So it's least effective. We have respond by calling to either quickly screen the applicant or hear an applicant's phone voice for telemarketing or receptionist positions. So ito ay simpleng call, hindi mo nakikita, hindi mo na-observe yung characteristics and behavior. So papaano? Mahirap. Apply in person when organizations don't want their phones tied up by applicants calling or they want to get a physical look at the applicant, and of course, the send resume when the organization expects a large response and does not have the resources to speak with thousands of applicants. Isa pa yon, kung bakit least effective yung newspaper ads. Pwede rin naman, in other way around, dumagsa yung mga um, resume sa company. So, do you have the proper workforce to filter the resume and look at really the person who is better for that position or who is best for the position? Another is the blind box method. The organization does not want its name in public, especially for big companies, that doesn't want an avalanche of application, many from unqualified applicants. The company might fear that people wouldn't apply if they knew the name of the company. Let's say sinabi na funeral home, clerk, position. May mga tao na matatakot mag-apply kasi dun sa title. So hindi siya effective in terms of recruitment dahil sa mga ganong bagay. Or on rare occasions, a company needs to terminate an employee but wants first to find a replacement. So, yung supervisor, may prospect siya na tanggalin, hindi magandang tignan kung ilalagay na agad sa newspaper yung calling or yung vacancy dahil baka yung isang tao na gusto mong tanggalin sa company ay nagbabasa or it happened na meron siyang relative na basang advertisement, oh, this is your position, bakit naghahanap na sila? So, it's not a good thing for a company to do that. And it's not a good recruitment method or tool. Another is electronic media. This is the use of television and radio stations. Pwede rin pala na mga commercial sa radyo, ang pagre-recruit. Meron akong napanood before na I forgot the title of the show, yung nag-announce yung announcer ng hiring. Sabi ko, pwede pala yun sa TV. So, after nung palabas, after nung pagde-deliver nung news ata yun or what, nagsabi ng hiring. So, pwedeng gamitin yung television or radio. And I think mas malaki yung magiging scope nito, lalo na dun sa mga mahihilig manood at makinig ng radyo. Situation wanted ads also, or job wanted or positions wanted ads. Para rin siyang newspaper ad but in reverse. It's placed by a person seeking a specific job and directed to potential employers. Ito naman, yung yung anong tawag dito, yung aplikante, yung nagpo-post ng advertisements. Kung doon sa newspaper ad, ang company ang nagpo-post, dito sa situation wanted ads, ang nagpo-post ay yung tao na gustong makahanap ng trabaho. So parang nag-aim siya na sana mabasa ng possible company na ito yung aking qualifications, etc. And pwedeng ako yung i-hire ninyo doon sa certain position na qualified ako. Advantage, walang cost ito sa organization. Ang magiging effort lang ng organization, I don't know lang kung may gumagawa pa nito. Before, meron. Pero ngayon, I'm not that sure kung meron pang nagpo-post sa newspaper ng situation wanted at yung company ay tinitignan yung newspaper if there are posts like this. Kung may possible na employees or applicant na maging employee ng organization. Ang modern version nito, ito yung pwede na nangyayari. Kasi sa newspaper, parang I doubt kung meron pang nagawa nito. Ngayon, meron tayong mga social networking, yung LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So you post your status, you post your call na pwede kang maging part ng company, ikaw ay willing, qualified, etc. Siguro you are fourth year na, no? It would be better to expose yourself with LinkedIn kasi yun yung isang platform na ilalagay mo doon kung ano yung mga qualifications mo and companies may look at it for, of course, there are a lot of people who are part of the LinkedIn. Makakakuha ka ng mga linkages and eventually trabaho na para sa'yo. Point of purchase methods based on the same point of purchase or POP, advertising principles used to market products to consumer. The idea behind POP is to get you to buy more items while you are already in the store. So makikita nyo itong picture sa McDonald's instead of product yung nakapost, hiring, now hiring. So ang tendency nito, yung mga mahihilig kumain dun sa ganong establishment, edi makikita nila ay hiring pala. So may mga vacancies na posted. It is inexpensive and ang target nito ay yung laging nandun sa business na yon. Laging nakain sa McDo, laging nakain sa Jollibee or whatsoever. The disadvantage is that only a limited number of people are exposed to the sign. Paano kapag yung palang supervisor na hinahanap mo ay hindi naman nakain sa McDo, hindi naman nakain sa Jollibee or kahit sa anong fast food? Kaya lang, siguro it's one also of the qualifications, ano? To be a supervisor of certain fast food chain, kailangan nag-take ka or nagko-consume ka ng mga products nila. Next, employment agencies, very common. The company hire an agency to select, to gather applicants and eventually uh, give the company list of prospect employees, applicants sa company. Yun. Ayan, agencies, employment agencies. Useful ito lalo na the HR department has a lot of things to do, a lot of things to prepare kasi hindi lang naman recruitment and selection ang task ng HR, marami pa. So maganda to para hindi masyadong tedious sa side ng HR department. Ayan. And then, the employment agencies may charge, syempre, may bayad. Yun yung isang disadvantage. Instead of the payment of the company ay dun lang, mismo sa staff ng HR, magbabayad ka pa ng iba for the employment agencies. Kung gagamitan mo nga ng employment agencies. And then the disadvantage, company loses some control over its recruitment process and may end up with undesirable applicants. The employment agencies may know the characteristics essential for a particular job. Pero syempre, ang nakakaalam talaga noon ay yung mismong nasa loob ng company. Executive search firms or the headhunters. The jobs that they represent tend to be higher paying, non-entry level positions such as executives, engineers, and managers. Kung mapapansin ninyo, wala masyadong ads or let's say mga postings online na hiring kapag higher yung positions na kailangan. Halimbawa, manager, supervisors ng mga big companies, kailan tayo nakakita ng classified ads ng hiring ng supervisor, let's say, ng Magnolia or San Miguel or Ayala Group of Corporations Incorporated. Wala. Kasi the company hires headhunters, firms, reputable executive search firms para sila yung magbigay ng mga possible applicants sa organization or sa company nung pwede dun sa mga higher level positions na nabanggit. There are charge, of course, tend to be about 30% of the applicant's first year salary. Yung kanina, yung sa employment agencies, about 10% to 30%. Itong executive search firms, para siyang higher level ng employment agencies na talagang mga experts yung nag-gather ng pool of applicants. Yun talaga yung pinag-aralan nila and then binibigay sa company. 30% ng sweldo, unang sweldo ng applicant sa kanila nabibigay. Maganda sana ikaw ay tatawaging headhunter. So yung mga companies na nangangailangan ng employees, sa'yo nagsasabi o sa company mo nagsasabi na kailangan ko ng ganito, and then ang next phase is to post or to disseminate the information na kailangan ng ganito, or sasabihan mo yung mga kakilala mo, especially if it is an executive position or higher paying positions. So this is an example of that, yung mga executive firms. Public employment agencies, meron tayong DOLE, tama ba? Saka sa mga city hall, municipality, cities, meron tayong mga local government designed to help people to find job. Sa General Trias, napakaswerte kasi very active yung in charge dito. Nagpo-post talaga. If you go to the City Hall, daming posting doon kung ano-ano yung mga available positions, available jobs na pwede nyong applyan after graduation. So maganda ito kasi the government helps the person, the inhabitants of a certain community or place para makapaghanap ng trabaho. Aside doon, nagbibigay din ng services such as career advertisement, resume preparation, yung ating mga public employment agencies. Then another is referral. Current employees recommend family members and friends for a job. Kaya lang ang mga referrals, syempre yung mga company o let's say human resource supervisor or manager, hihingi din siya ng referral syempre dun sa tingin niya qualified or expert din in terms of recommending the proper people or proper applicant for a particular job. According to a survey, referrals were rated as the most effective recruitment method. Bakit kaya? Kasi lalo na kung magkakakilala yung sa organization, yung mga human resource personnel and supervisors and managers, alam mo kung ano yung hinahanap nitong company na to, and you can really provide for them yung people na appropriate or suited talaga dun sa trabaho na yon. Some organizations provide financial incentives to employees who recommend applicants who are hired. Sana all. Meron daw mga organizations na nagbibigay ng incentives dun sa mga nag-refer, halimbawa within, internal, merong ni-refer kay boss, o pwede po ito boss, and then natanggap, maganda yung output, na-meet yung targets and goals ng company, nabibigyan ng incentive yung nag-refer. Then also direct mail. Before, when I graduated from college, parang ang dami kong direct mail na natanggap from the organization, nagsasend sila kasi ng mga mass mailings information. Saan nila nakuha yung information ko? Ayun nga, sa mga LinkedIn, sa mga social networking sites na nag-type ako and whatsoever. So sila naghahanap, baka you're interested to apply, to be part of the company. Ayan. Nagsasend sila ng letters, brochures, etc. And then internet usually takes two forms, employer-based websites and internet recruiters. Pag employer-based websites, an organization lists available job openings and provides information about itself and the minimum requirements needed to apply to a particular job. Pag naman internet recruiters, it pertains to a private company whose websites lists job openings for hundreds or even thousands of organizations and resumes for thousands of applicants. Yung employer-based, edi yung company mismo yung merong website, nakalagay doon kung anong mga openings, etc. Pag internet recruiters, parang agency na online lang yung attack on the recruitment. Ang advantage nito, cheap, kasi you don't need to post or to really go over with a lot of advertisements, produce better quality applicants than did newspaper ads and career fairs. Kasi almost everybody is engaging in internet, in social media, or lahat ay nagamit ng computer or ng cellphone, Facebook and all. So sa internet, may nakita ka lang na website, madali, cheap, and parang mabilis yung pagre-recruit pag ganito yung ginamit. These are some examples. So yung Shell, meron silang website na kanila. Makikita mo kung ano yung mga careers, ano yung mga vacancies. And then the IBM. Ayan. And the other examples. Ito naman, hindi company, kundi recruiter siya. So ita-type mo yung sa tingin yung job title and then kung saan ka nakatira, then you can find jobs. It will be given to you na madali. Makikita mo, uy, meron palang vacancy dito, etc., etc. Then job fairs, this is very common, especially sa mga students, recruitment method in which there are several employers available at one location so that many applicants can obtain information at one time. Yung first type, yun yung pag malapit na kayong gumraduate, nagkakandak ng job fairs ang OSAS. May mga organizations, may booths at the same time. Tapos, ayun, pupunta ka sa mga booth and then titignan nila if may chance ka to be part of the company. When I was in college, maraming ganito ang CVSU. And then, bagong mag-pandemic, syempre, meron tayong mga job fairs. Paano kaya gagawin ng job fairs ngayong pandemic? Online din, papasok ka siguro dun sa mga virtual platform or breakout sessions kung gusto mong mag-apply. Pero maganda to kasi you have variety of jobs to look into and then marami ka ring nakikita. Nakikita mo sila kung paano sila mag-apply. Nakikita mo sila kung paano tumingin dun sa mga jobs na available. Yung mga booth na available. And then, may mga freebies din usually yung mga booth. When I was still in college, masaya kapag uma-attend ng job fair kasi may nakukuhang mga post-it, ball pen, kapag na-attend ka kasi nakikita mo yung mga booth. So kahit hindi ka matanggap, meron ka namang nakuhang parang remembrance from the company. But the essence of the job fair is to help, of course, the person to get a job and kung siya yung fit doon sa job na hinahanap. And then second type, many organizations in the same field in one location. So ito naman, yung company yung nagpo-put up ng booth and then nag-aantay siya kung may dadaan or merong mapapatingin doon sa pwesto at mag-a-apply, magpapasa ng kung ano-ano. Of course, meron din itong proper announcements and all. Advantage, each visitor is a potential applicant for every organization. Kaya lang, each organization must compete directly. Lalo na kung ilan yung booth na nag-put up sa mga job fairs. Third type, meron pa pala, a single organization will hold its own job fair. Yung second type, marami sila. Third type, isa lang. Ikaw lang, company mo lang. Meron ako nakikitang ganito sa mga SM, yung mga may mga booth sa kanila na hiring or not hiring eh. Halimbawa sa parang ganun yung setup, yung sa mga schools, merong nagpo-put up ng parang space sa malls, tapos nakalagay may tarpaulin, tapos merong tao doon, pwede mong tanungin about a particular school or about a particular university, kung pwede kang mag-enroll doon. It is almost the same with that, the third type job fairs, no? Merong may space para doon sa company, and then may tao na pwede kang pagpasahan ng requirements or tanungin about the company, ano yung mga vacancies or positions. No competition, kaso lang expensive. Lalo na kung mga malls, mga uh, institution or yung mga institutions nga, establishments yung pagpuput upan mo ng booth for you to get the employee, the most appropriate or suited employee. Next is evaluating the effectiveness of recruitment strategies. We have to examine the number of applicants who applied, sino yung qualified, at sino yung na-hire. So in that manner, makikita natin kung effective ba yung ginamit mo na recruitment. Kasi yung recruitment, sabi ko nga, naghahanap ka pa lang ng mga possible na empleyado. Pero ang tanong, sa paghahanap mo ng possible na employees, ilan ba talaga yung qualified? Marami kasing pwedeng magpasa eh. Lalo na yung mga job fairs, o pasa, pasa, pasa. When I was in college, pasa, pasa, pasa. Di mo naman alam kung ikaw ba yung tama doon o yung qualified doon sa trabaho na yon. So you can examine the number of applicants who applied, qualified, and got hired. O kaya naman, cost per applicant method, the amount of money spent on a recruitment method divided by the number of people that subsequently apply for job as a result of recruitment strategy. Example, newspaper ad versus the job fair. Sa newspaper, 5,000 pesos yields 30 applicants. So ilan yon? 5,000 divided by 30, 167 167 pesos per person. Sa job fair, 1,500 lang yung nagastos mo pero 100 yung aplikante na nag-apply, 15 pesos lang per person yung kumbaga nagastos mo. So you have to consider also the cost in evaluation of your strategy. Cost per qualified applicant, this time it's not just about those who applied, but you will look at the cost, the total cost that you have for the recruitment, and then ilan yung qualified na nakita mo basing on their submitted documents or credentials. The best method is examine the number of successful employees generated by each recruitment source. This is an effective method because every applicant will not be qualified, nor will every qualified applicant become a successful employee. Next, effective selection techniques share three characteristics. It should be valid, reduce the chance of legal challenge, and cost-effective. So, mako-consider daw na effective yung ating selection this time, selection techniques, kung yung ginamit natin ay valid. Of course, in selection, later we will have discussion, paano ba tayo nagse-select ng employees, ano ba yung mga tests na ginamit natin, ano ba yung mga protocols, valid ba yon, paano natin masasabi na accurate yung ating pagse-select ng mga applicants, and then dapat ay wala kang maging issues or concern right after you do the selection. Kung hindi ka magiging legal, kung walang legal challenge na mangyayari, it's an effective selection technique. Walang nagreklamo, walang after ma-hire ay meron palang issues and concerns with the previous employment, and of course, yung cost effective. Walang masyadong ginastos yung company doon sa iyong pagsaselect ng applicants. Okay, so this is actually a study of Zotoli and Vanus in 2000, the inside source versus the outside source. Inside source includes employee referrals and rehires, while outside source includes the job fair ads, school placement, officers, recruiters, etc. Ang result, employees recruited through inside source stayed with the organization or the company longer, performed better, compared daw doon sa nirecruit outside. Ang first explanation, applicants who are referred by employees receive more accurate information about the job than do employees recruited by other methods. Parang yung kanina sa referral, ano? Pag referred yung mga employees, parang mas kilala kasi yung company, magkakakilala yung mga HR personnel. So, magre-refer ng taong talagang suited dun sa job. And ang nangyayari, mas nag stay sa company yung ni-refer nung isang expert o nung isang tao na may alam doon sa certain company na nanghihingi ng referral. Second explanation is interpersonal attraction. People tend to be attracted to those who are similar to themselves. If this is true, then an employee recommending a friend for a job will more likely to recommend one similar to herself or himself. Thus, it would make sense that a person who is happy with her job would recommend a person who, because of her similarity to the incumbent, should also be happy with a job. And vice versa. Pag unhappy yung employee, magre-refer din siya ng unhappy na applicant, edi hindi yun makakatulong doon sa company, sa pag-meet ng goals and objectives ng company. So ito daw yung explanation, bakit mas okay na inside source kesa outside source yung iyong pipiliin o i-hire sa isang company. Realistic job preview, it involves giving an applicant an honest assessment of the job. Truth hurts sometimes, most of the time, but it would be better to be truthful, especially dun sa mga applicants natin, para alam nila kung ano yung expectations, ano yung mga bagay na i-expectin nila sa pagpasok nila dun sa company. Hindi yung you will cover things up just to please the person. Halimbawa, gustong-gusto mo yung aplikante, ay ang sweldo ay mababa lang. And then you will not say that to the person. Kasi during the interview, it's a no-no that you ask for the salary as an applicant. Medyo minus points yun. E di yung ikaw, bilang HR personnel, it's your responsibility naman to tell to that person yung rate talaga, yung salary rate. Kasi you have to present everything about the job bago niya ito tanggapin, bago niya ito i-embrace, bago siya maging part ng company. Para ma-make sure na talagang kaya siya pumasok sa company ay gusto niya, walang namilit sa kanya, at aware siya kung ano yung mga bagay na i-expect niya at dapat niyang gawin relative doon sa job. Expectation lowering procedure. This is a form of realistic job review. It lowers an applicant's expectation about the various aspects of the job. Example, the job is performed in a very small space, higher levels of fear, and with few opportunities for interaction. Sabi kasi ay kapag nagkaroon tayo ng trabaho, lalo na yung mga fresh graduate, ang taas ng ating expectations agad, ano, na yung trabaho na yon ay perfect. Pero dapat ay isipin din natin na may mga limitations yung work. So as an HR personnel, dapat pinapresent mo yon. The expectation should be lowered na hindi perfect yung setup. Ito yung mga negative side kapag ikaw ay naging part ng company. Are you willing to take this or not? Next, interview. Before I proceed with the interview, are you still there? Can I see your raising of hand if you are still here with me? Ayan. So I see the raising of hands. Now, let us proceed with the interview. So interview is one of the methods that we used for the selection of applicants to a possible employment or positions. This is the most common method. Kasi para malaman natin kung ang tao ay fit talaga dun sa trabaho, kailangan mo siyang tanungin. Kailangan mo siyang interviewin, kailangan mo siyang i-interrogate sa mga bagay-bagay. Interviewer asks questions, then makes the employment decision based on the answer to the question. So mali, meron akong narinig kasi, sabi, ano daw, wala daw masyadong bearing yung interview kapag nag-apply ng trabaho. Mas may bearing daw, sabi nung narinig ko, mas may bearing daw yung mga tests, yung mga test na ibibigay sa'yo. I beg to disagree. Kasi, yung mga tests, pwedeng-pwede mo siyang, hindi naman dayain. Pero, ang tests kasi, lalo na yung mga psychological tests, kung hindi naman cognitive tests, ay walang tama at walang mali. Ang interview kasi, kapag nasabi mo na siya doon sa iyong employer o doon sa nag-i-interview sa'yo, it's hard to get it back. It's hard to parang get back nga the answers at tatanim na yon doon sa isip noong employer na yun yung sagot niya. And the answers to the interview could be the impression, it can give impression doon sa applicant no, na ini-interview. So, dapat galingan ang pag-i-interview. I remember nung sa IO psychology class natin, di ba, nag-in-interview kayo during the recruitment and selection class. So, most likely, naging aware kayo kung ano yung mga possible questions, ano yung mga dapat gawin during the interview, huwag kakabahan. But this time, if you are going to be an HR personnel, assigned sa recruitment and selection, interview yung isa sa method na ginagawa. So, dapat, pinapractice nyong mag-interview. Yung mga nagtaas ng kamay kanina na gustong mag-venture sa IO psychology or sa human resource. There are types of interview, structured versus unstructured. So, the only difference is that pag structured, merong mga set of questions na of course depending dun sa job na ina-applyan. Unstructured, parang free-flowing, free to ask about anything. May advantages and disadvantages. Pag structured, edi meron ng prepared na questions, hindi na mahihirapan yung nagtatanong. Kapag unstructured ay you have to listen carefully to the interviewee kasi yung questions mo will depend on how he or she answers, let's say, the first question, the next question, and all. Ayun. Ang structured interview pati ay very easy to evaluate kasi na-establish mo na yung questions. Pag unstructured, gagawa ka pa ng, let's say, rubrics or means of evaluation, paano mo i-evaluate yung sagot nila. More reliable ang structured interviews and valid than interviews with less structure. Pero ako, I personally, I am sometimes invited by companies to perform the interview for some applicants. Mas ginagamit ko yung unstructured interview kesa sa structured. Though meron ako mga set of questions in mind and alam ko yung questions na itatanong ko, pero I prefer to siguro have it as a combination of the two. Kasi kapag nag-stick ka lang with the structured interview, may mga sagot yung applicants na hindi mo na i-extract yung mga sagot. Kasi kapag nag-i-interview, 'di ba, dapat you have to pay attention, you have to listen carefully. Kayo may research, merong mga magi-interview sa inyo. Dapat everything has meaning eh. So, kapag structured yung interview mo, may set of questions ka, first question, second question, throw. baka meron siyang isagot na merong kinalaman dun sa posisyon na ina-applyan niya. Parang you can ask another question, follow-up question na wala dun sa list na pinrepare mo. So ako personally, if I am the interviewer, kasi ako nakakapag-interview din ako before sa mga companies, unstructured yung ginagamit ko. And at the same time, mas nakaka-ease ng kaba doon sa mga applicants kapag unstructured yung interview. But again, according to research, mas okay yung structured interview. Style, number of interviewers and number of interviewees. One-on-one, so kayo ay isa-isa na ini-interview. Serial interviews, ito, isa-isa pa rin, pero series of single interviews. Pag return interviews, similar siya with serial interviews. Ang difference lang is yung time between the first interview and the subsequent interview. Pwede rin namang panel interview. So, sino sa inyo yung nakapanood ng Three Idiots, meron dong part na interview yung isang bida doon, panel interview, isa lang siya, tapos ang daming nag-i-interview sa kanya. Ine-evaluate siya nung mga interviewer, siya lang, tapos the focus is on the person. Pag group interviews naman, ang dami yung aplikante na pwedeng sumagot doon sa tanong noong nagtatanong, nung interviewer. Pero usually, ang ginagamit sa mga company, especially dito sa Philippines, ay one-on-one interview. Medium, face-to-face, telephone interviews, video conference interviews, written interviews. Face-to-face, very common, especially during the time na wala pang pandemic. Ako personally, mas gusto ko yung face-to-face kasi lahat tinitignan ko, ultimo pagpapawis ng kamay, nakikita kasi pag face-to-face, may tumulo na pawis, nakikita, may meaning kasi yun di ba sa psych? May mga meaning ang ating behavior, ang ating actions. Telephone interviews, pwede rin naman. Ang dilemma lang, di mo siya nakikita ng ginagawa niya, etc. Then, pwede rin video conference or yun nga, written interview. Written yung interview. So, siguro may certain time na magsasagot ka tapos ipapasa mo yung sagot. Parang survey. Advantages of structured interviews. I guess I can skip this one because I've already discussed. Also, there are 8 factors that affects that unpredictability of unstructured interviews. So, ito yung mga factors na nakaka-apekto daw. Poor intuitive ability. Interviewers often base their hiring decisions on gut feelings or intuition. Siyempre, kapag nag-interview ka, you should avoid biases. You should avoid your gut feelings kasi usually yung mga gut feelings natin during the interview, hindi talaga yan nakakatulong para makahire ng tama na empleyado sa isang posisyon. So, mas maganda na you ask questions relative to the characteristics that are needed for a particular position. Not just gut feelings. Mukha siyang pakiramdam ko ay okay siya. Hindi pwede yung ganun, Hindi pwede yung pakiramdaman lang. Lack of job relatedness. Most of the questions asked are not job related. Thus, it cannot predict the future performance on an applicant. So, maganda pag structured, alam mo, sunod-sunod yung mga tanong mo, alam mo na relative yung mga tanong mo. Pag unstructured, may tendency na kung ano-ano yung tinatanong. Meron akong na-attendan na isang ganito, hindi ko na lang sasabihin kung anong company. Ano tawag dito? Panel interview. So, kasama yung boss, ako, tapos meron pang isa, tapos may boss. Unstructured yung interview na ginagamit, halatang halata. Kasi kung ano-ano na lang yung tinatanong, na wala namang kinalaman sa So parang, ang naging role ko doon, naalala ko, ako yung taga-tuwid ng landas. So kapag medyo nababago na yung mga questions, ultimo yung mga personal things matters, hindi naman dapat itanong yon during the interview. Yung boss may tinanong, how about you are a single mother? So, medyo na ano ako, dahil tinanong yon, wala namang kinalaman sa posisyon na ina-applyan, hindi ko na rin babanggitin kung ano ang posisyon na ina-applyan. Malalaman kung anong company. And then, kailangan mo siyang ibalik sa track. Kasi unstructured yung interview eh. Yun yung disadvantage. Pwede mong matanong kahit anong tanong, naging personal na yung question and answer. Primacy effect, first impression last. Information presented early in an interview carries more weight than information presented later. So ito daw yung isa pang danger pag unstructured yung interview. Kapag nakapag-establish na yung applicant ng good impression dun sa employer or sa interviewer, kahit ano na yung question na susunod, parang ang ganda-ganda pa rin ng sagot niya. Kasi nagkaroon na ng magandang impression doon sa ini-interview. Suggested that the interviewers decide about a candidate within the first few minutes of an interview. And then to reduce potential primacy effects, the interviewer must rate the applicant's response after each question rather than waiting until the end of the interview to make a single judgment or rating. Tama. So dapat nire-rate mo siya per question, not as a whole interview. Kasi bukod sa hindi mo naman lahat mare-recall yung kanyang mga sinagot, ay mas maganda yung per question mo siya i-evaluate para talagang makita mo kung tama ba yung sinagot niya or okay yung kanyang thoughts and constructions doon sa mga questions na tinro mo sa kanya. Contrast effect, when the performance of one applicant affects the perception of the performance of the next applicant. Medyo totoo to, no? Yung kapag maganda yung naging effect noong una, edi parang nahahawa yung mga susunod. Kaya lang, malas kapag hindi maganda yung sinundan mo. So how would you make a good impression or a good thing, good experience kung yung sinundan mo ay hindi okay? So contrast effect. Negative information bias. Negative information carries more weight in an employment decision than does positive information. Sabi nga, sa dami-dami ng positive na characteristics, ang nakikita ay yung negative. Meron lang nabanggit. Yun nga, yung kanina ko example, single mother applying for a job, yun na ang nakita. Hindi naman negative ang pagiging single mother, pero yun na yung naging focus ng discussion, nagiging bias na. Pwedeng maawa yung employer or hindi siya totally tanggapin kasi ay meron siyang case na siya ay single mother. So, regardless kung ang kanyang educational qualifications, regardless kung ang kanyang qualifications ay pasok doon sa pagiging empleyado o doon sa job, wala na yon. Natabunan na siya nung negative informations. Then the interviewer-interviewee similarity. Research suggests that an interviewer will receive a higher score if he or she is similar to the interviewer in terms of personality, attitude, or race. Kaya kapag naging HR personnel staff na may kinalaman ang trabaho mo sa recruitment selection, dapat ay talagang avoid any biases and focus on the things that you should get from the applicant. Hindi porket pareho kayo ng religion, pareho kayo ng race, nationality, or attitude, uy, mataas to. Pero, according to research, meron yung kinalaman sa results ng interview. Kapag magaan yung loob mo sa kanya or parang pareho kami, mas mataas yung score doon sa interview. Of course, interviewee appearance, very important. Dress to impress. Kapag magsasalang sa interview, ayusin ang suot, ayusin ang itsura. Same goes with the HR personnel. Kasi aside from ini-evaluate natin yung applicant, tinitingnan ka rin naman ng applicant, hindi ba? So in general, dapat ay attractive yung iyong itsura during the interview. Physically attractive, less attractive applicants daw. Professional dress applicants, poorly dressed applicants. Kasi alam na kung ano yung dapat isuot and what. So, dapat ay Pero dapat during the interview is maganda yung appearance and you set parang a standard na ito yung personality ko during the interview. Interviewee appearance is a potent hiring factor. Obese applicants receive lower interview scores than their leaner counterparts. So that's according to some researches. So hindi na yung interview, yung answer sa interview yung naging focus, but yung appearance. It helps. Nonverbal cues, factors such as eye contact and posture, meron din niyang ibig sabihin, nakaka-influence din yan sa pag-score sa interview. And of course, during the structured interviews, hindi naaapektuhan yung scores ng nonverbal cues. Pero pag unstructured, kasi nga, wala kang nakaset na questions, ma-observe mo yung tao most of the time, nagka-count yung mga non-verbal cues. Next, steps in creating a structured interview, kasi yun yung recommended. Structured interview, determine the KSAOs to top in the interview. Ano ba talaga yung characteristics na hinahanap? Doon dapat iikot yung mga interview questions na i-create mo. And then after creating interview questions, create the scoring key for the interview answers. Interview questions can be clarifiers, disqualifier, skill level determiner. Pag qualifier, as the name implies, you ask questions to clarify. To clarify information about the resume, the cover letter, the application, and then, ayan, meron tayong example. Pag naman disqualifier, questions that must be answered a particular way or the applicant is disqualified. So, may nakita ka na sa resume na, ay, disqualify siya, kaya lang natawag siya for interview. So, this is the question, kapag nasagot niya or hindi, doon magbe-base yung disqualification talaga niya doon sa ina-applyan niya. Skill level determiner, designed to top an interviewee's level of expertise. So, titingnan mo, i-confirm mo kung talagang may ability, may skill yung tao na nag-a-apply for a particular position. Future focus questions or situational questions. Applicants are given a situation and asked how they would handle it. Maganda to. Sa mga clinics, tinatanong to kapag mag-a-apply ka as, let's say, counselor, mental health advocate, usually future focus questions ang tinatanong. Halimbawa, ito ka sa situation na to, anong gagawin mo, etc. Pag naman past focus questions or pattern behavior description interviews, it focuses on previous behavior rather than future intended behavior. So, ang tinitignan, anong nangyari? Applicant's experience. Tell me something about what happened to you, blah, 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 blah. Kasi, the past would have an effect on the present or the future experience of the applicant to the company. So, tinatanong. Then, organizational fit questions taps how well an applicant's personality and values will fit the organizational culture. The idea behind this is to make sure that the person's values are consistent with those of the organization. Though this is somehow may bias, pero we cannot erase the fact na yung culture plays a vital role for you to be hired in a company. So, tinatanong kung yung culture mo, yung values mo ba ay aligned doon sa company na ina-applyan mo, and how will you handle people with diverse culture, with diverse or different values with you. Then next, scoring key for interview answers, the right and wrong approach. So, pwedeng i-rate yung interview with the basis of ito yung tamang sagot dapat na sinagot niya or ito yung mali. Madali lang yun, ano? Kasi sineset mo kung ano yung tama na sagot sa tanong or kung ano yung mali na sagot dun sa tanong. So, madali lang. Para ka lang nag-check ng exam. Usually used for skill level determiners. Itong mga ganitong approaches on how to score interview answer. Skill level, kasi tinitingnan mo yung capacity ng tao eh. O nagawa ba niya yung pagbubuhat ng 16 kilos ng bigas at hindi niya nagawa. So, merong right or wrong. Of course, pag maraming wrong or maraming hindi niya nagawa, edi hindi siya skillful, hindi siya competent, and thus, hindi siya dapat ang piliin doon sa job na yon. Typical answer approach, create a list of all possible answers to each question. These experts rate the favorableness of each answer and then rate. So, meron ng mga standard answers to interview questions. Ang problem nito, sa isang tanong, maraming pwedeng sagot. So, paano mo re-ratean yun? At paano mo sasabihin kung ano talaga yung most favorable answer to the question? So, sa typical answer approach, may questions ka, ito yung, wala namang tama't maling sagot, pero ito yung sagot na gusto kong marinig doon sa applicant. Key issues. So the experts create a list of key issues that they think should be included in the perfect answer. For each key issues that is included, the interviewee gets a point. Kung kanina yung actual answer, yung iyong hinahanap, dito naman for as long as makapagsabi siya ng mga key issues doon sa sagot niya, meron na yung weight, meron na yung points. Next, conducting the structured interviews. First, very important, build rapport, then set the agenda, ask the interview questions, provide information, and then don't forget to entertain questions. Sa isang interview, isa ito sa nakakalimutan ng mga HR personnel and staff or yung interviewer na after niyang magtanong, dapat you have to give chance then doon sa applicant to ask questions. Ako personally, before, hindi ako nag-entertain ng questions. Pero I realize, oo nga no, kasi nagtanong ako sa kanya, malay ko, may tanong siya sa akin. Tapos makikilala ko pa siya kahit papaano dun sa paraan ng pagtatanong niya at content ng tanong niya. So you have to entertain questions also. After a long time for questioning the applicant, give time also for them to ask questions. Next, job search skills. So let's say you apply for a job, there are certain skills required and magiging hard ka, syempre. Matatanggap ka sa company if you have the characteristics. Your characteristics are equivalent to the job that is posted or vacant. Surviving the interview process. How can we survive the interview process? Schedule the interview, then prepare things before the interview, learn about the company, and dress neatly, professionally, adjust your style. During the interview, use non-verbal cues or behavior, and also show desired verbal behaviors. In asking questions, pointing out how you are similar to the interviewer, not asking about the salary, huwag magsalita ng napakabagal, at don't hesitate to ask questions if you have questions. Then after the interview, ito din, minsan nawawala ito, write a brief letter thanking the interviewer for his or her time. After the interview, tapos na, nag-shake hands na, and then that's it. Pero nakakalimutan din noong applicant na pasalamatan yung nag-interview sa kanya. And it is something, aside from a sight of respect, something that can add to points kapag nagpasalamat or nag-letter yung interviewee sa interviewer, thank you for your time, etc. Parang merong ibang bagay na pinapalabas yon or pinapakita characteristics noong interviewee doon sa kanyang interviewer. Then writing cover letters. Cover letters are letter that accompanies a resume or a job application. It's also called letter of intent or application letter. I know that you already have an idea of how to create a cover letter I will no longer dwell much of this. Formal letter, ang cover letter, letter of intent or application letter. And the technique or the thing is that you have to make an impressive cover letter. Cover letter pa lang, mapapatingin na yung interviewer or yung HR na mag-a-assess, mag-evaluate. So, don't forget to write your qualifications, bakit ka fit dun sa job, and then avoid grammar, spelling errors, wag din gumamit ng mga highfalutin words, or do not mention personal experiences. It will not help you. Then the resume, it is a formal summary of an applicant's professional and educational background. What's the difference between resume and curriculum vitae? When you talk about curriculum vitae, it's a much longer resume. Kasi ang resume usually 2 pages. Enough na yon to describe the person. Pag curriculum vitae kasi, 2 or more, you can include everything. Parang ang curriculum vitae is all your qualifications, talagang pinakita mo lahat doon, lahat ng trainings na inattendan mo, lahat ng bagay na tungkol sa'yo. Ang resume ay summary na kapag nakita yung 2 pages na yon, it will give a good impression doon sa interviewer or sa employer. Types of resume, chronological resume, nakalista yung mga jobs in order from the most to the least recent. How about functional resume naman? Yung functional resume, jobs are grouped by function rather than listed in order by date. Least popular ito with employers. Then psychological resume, this is the style that takes advantage of the psychological principle. Hindi lang yung experience yung nakalagay doon sa resume, but also some functions, some parts na importanteng makita ng employer. The rule is that relevant, dapat na ma-manage yung unusual things, tanggalin na yon. And of course, it should bring positivity doon sa magbabasa. Take advantage of impression formation principle, primacy and short-term memory limits. So ang kaibahan ng psychological resume ay may iba't iba siyang parts, and at the same time ay sinasama mo lang yung mga bagay na sa tingin mo when you evaluate ay dapat makita noong supervisor o nung magi-interview sa'yo. Highlighting also your qualifications, your best qualifications. And then we have also a model. I will not dwell on this more kasi ito ay more of research for your reading. That would be all for recruiting and interview. Are you still with me? You are raising your hand. Ayan. So nakikita ko ang pagwe-wave ng mga tao. Nasa ano pa rin? Nasa session pa rin natin. Any question pertaining to recruiting and interviewing before we proceed with references and testing? Question? Siguro bago tayo mag-proceed, let us have a short break. It's 2:26 already. I will stop the presentation and I will stop the recording and let us have a short break. Thank you.